social work students from MSUM. Through a class in which we were all enrolled in, we've had the opportunity to work with the guys at PEP and girls at PEP. In working with PEP, we have studied, analyzed, and produced possible recommendations to better the Minnesota crime-free multi-housing program. We have done this through interviews with various people associated and affected by the program. And here to cover these interviews is Tessa.
Okay, as part of the Second Chance Opportunities Group, we've had the chance to interview Nancy Tarleson, Director of the Minnesota Crime-Free Multi-Housing Program for the Moorhead Police Department, Phyllis Emmel, who attended the training and whose daughter has negatively been impacted, and Janine Guffey, who is active in the Second Chance Group and has a criminal background. All of the interviewees agree that the main perceived benefit of participating in the program is receiving free background checks on prospective tenants, but they disagreed on the philosophy behind the program. Phyllis perceived the program to be emphasizing eviction first, leaving people with criminal and poor financial backgrounds no options to live. And Janine said she feels the program perpetuates negative stereotypes of tenants with criminal backgrounds destructing property. On the other hand, Nancy asserts the program is to protect the city of Moorhead by training landlords how to protect their properties and citizens, the power of eviction, and how to help the police department. However, Phyllis pointed out that the police department should be protecting all of us, not just landlords and people without criminal backgrounds. And policies like the crime-free program alienate and marginalize a significant portion of our population, often creating homelessness in our community. And one thing that they all agreed upon is that the program has not been evaluated, which leads to our recommendations that will be given by Michelle.
In response to the data that we gathered from the preliminary research that we conducted on the crime-free housing program, we'd like to propose 3 basic recommendations. The first is that we think more emphasis should be put on tenant rights during the landlord training program. Right now, the emphasis is on eviction tactics rather than how to keep their tenants housed. Secondly, we think there should be a more standardized screening method to be employed with concrete guidelines for screening in tenants that may have a criminal background, but that have demonstrated that they're moving forward and striving for a chance at housing. The third recommendation that we have is that the multi-housing program be fully and formally evaluated by an outside source to determine whether the program as it's currently being operated is effective, efficient, or whether it's even needed by our community. Those are the ones that we think are the most pressing recommendations at this time. Thank you for taking the time to hear the recommendations.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions, anyone?
I have a question. Do you have a proposal on who should do the outside evaluation? A suggestion?
As far as a specific entity, no. We didn't look into, who would be capable of effectively and thoroughly analyzing the program. That would be something that, if it was implemented, would be the next step is to find that agency.
Your second recommendation, standardized guidelines or process, would you just elaborate that on a little bit? Because what did you find? That there is not a standard process, or?
For what we've heard, landlords can take specific information and apply it differently. I know personally, my landlord, when they do a crime-free housing background check, they look for things that directly pertain to your rental history. If you've had destruction or theft, then they'll screen you out. But if it's just something other than that, they'll screen you in. And then there are other landlords that take that report that may include police calls for protection and take a look at that and say, well, you've had the police call, we don't want to rent you.
Okay, 2 questions about that. Is there a form that the crime-free multi-housing program gives to landlords that they recommend they use for background checks?
I can probably assist with that question. I do have all of the materials from the crime-free housing program that was given last year. They do have a form that they use to give landlords. They call them various types of templates. Some of them are just basic handouts regarding what your general background checklist should include, and I can pass that around and you can take a look at it. Others are your policies that you should have within your rental contract, indicating like the children playing in hallways, drug use, or any type of paraphernalia that might be found along the way. What you should do with those types of circumstances. I guess I have all this material, but I thought maybe we'd get a presentation from Nancy Tarleson, so perhaps the material has changed, and I don't want to make any assumptions that this is still what's currently inside of it.
Okay, and then one other question on the, you referred to the police calls on the record. Do landlords still get the entire record of what people had without anything blacked out? In other words, I thought we went through a period where the police had agreed to black out exactly the kind of call you just talked about.
I can also help out with that question. Diane, this is kind of a sample of what the police department would black out. This is kind of like what they would have and give to potential landlords that wanted to have the, I would say it's kind of like an IDC report, but they do blacken out certain types of information: victim, suspect, juveniles. And I know that there's another few more of those. They don't take out DUIs. They don't take out detox kinds of information. So they may have, it may not be as accurate as an arrest record from the BCA, Bureau of Criminal Apprehensions. It could be information that does not lead to a conviction. It is just simply part of their police record that can still be used to determine whether or not they will be tenants in that housing facility. I guess I was kind of hoping that we'd be able to have a presentation, but I'm sure that once we do hear from Nancy Charlson, those questions will probably be best directed towards her.
It does bring up another question, your answer. You know, if you work for an agency that requires a background check, that is done through the state of Minnesota, how is ours different? In other words, why have we duplicated a system that's already in place? Is it too expensive to go the route of the BCA? I don't know the answers to these things. I know that agencies depend on BCAs for personal care attendants and so forth. So to turn up things like a felony or something. Anyway, that would be a question I would want to know. Answer.
It is a question. Yeah.
Did you guys interview people other than Phyllis who had first-hand knowledge of people being denied housing because of these background checks?
No, well, we did interview Janine Guffey. She was affected by this because she does have a criminal background, and so she's working right now with the Second Chance group.
Was she denied housing?
From our understanding that she wasn't specifically in Moorhead, but she has had to deal with that in the past.
I believe it's her daughter that's refused the housing.
Oh.
Right. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah, thanks.